So today I want to get into how I do my consultation calls. It's actually been driving me crazy because I could have sworn I made this video before, but I couldn't find it anywhere. And I want to have it for my safety tips playlist for anyone who is currently a cuddle therapist or thinking about becoming one, because I want you to stay safe and know how to screen your clients. I also want to give credit where credit is due. Keely Shoup, who is one of the owners of Cuddlist, taught me this a couple years ago. So thank you, Keely, for teaching me this. So I'll just dive right into it. So number one, you get on the call, you're gonna say, hello, nice to meet you. My name's Andrea. Thanks for taking the time to do this call with me today. Check in, how are you feeling? If they're nervous, maybe say, hey, you seem a bit nervous. Would you like to just take a few deep breaths? I don't do this too often, but it's something to be aware of, sense their energy. If they seem really anxious, sometimes it's good to take a moment to help them calm down. Then you kind of get into what your purpose is, I'll say. So the purpose of this call today is just to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have, for me to get a better idea of your needs, and so you know what to expect in the session. And this is true. We're not only screening the client for safety, but we really truly are trying to get a better understanding of what their needs are so we can best serve them. So I'll usually start off with, do you have any burning questions? If you have anything, you can ask now. If not, I'll get into my questions and then you can ask again at the end. And, I'd say half the time they have a question, half the time they don't. And then we get into the first question, and my first question is, how did you hear about cuddle therapy and what resonated with you to try this? So basically you're wanting to know, what is their why? Why are they doing this? Because, people sometimes say, oh, I was just curious, but there's almost always a reason, and it's important that we know that so we can help them and better understand where they're coming from. The next question I'm going to ask is, do you have any goals or issues you'd like to work on? So some examples of goals or issues is communication skills, working on boundaries and consent, working around their fears and trauma around touch, and learning how to reintegrate touch in a healthy way. Sometimes people don't know what their goals are. Sometimes they say, hey, I just want to cuddle and relax. A lot of times they don't know what their goals are till they come to see you, and that's fine. But, we want to ask that question because if the person does have a goal, we want to help them achieve that goal and make sure that it is a goal that we can work on them with. I know I've had people, I had one guy, he came to me, he's like, my goal is to help my diabetes. And I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe they could help, but this is not a medical treatment. I don't want to, I don't want to mislead you. I think there's a lot of mental and physical health benefits from cuddling, but it is definitely, not a cure for diabetes. The next question I ask, and this is a very important one that you don't want to skip, is, do you have any trauma or intense experiences with touch? Now, I'd say more times than not, people say no. But for those people that say yes, it's very important to understand what their triggers may be, because you don't want to cause harm or accidentally trigger someone in a session. Now, I have this on my intake form, but you may also want to ask if anyone has allergies or sensitivities. If you do essential oils, wear perfume, laundry detergent, certain fabrics, you want to know about that before the session starts. The next question I'll ask is, picture in your mind a cuddle session. What does that experience look like to you? How do you imagine being held or holding someone? What cuddle positions do you want to try, basically, is the crux of it. And depending on the person, especially if English is their second language, I might just say, do you have any favorite cuddle positions or cuddle positions you want to try? But that's what we're trying to get at, is if there's a specific way they would like to cuddle, to hold me or for me to hold them. Sometimes they have them in mind, and I'll usually like make a quick note and write that down for when we meet. Sometimes they don't, and I'm like, that's okay, because I have a bunch to choose from. I, have a bunch of cuddle position demos online if you've been following me. But again, it's just kind of like the goals thing. It's helpful to know if they have something in mind, but if not, we can figure it out along the way. The next question I ask is, what is your history with touch? And do you currently have any access to it? Basically, what we're getting at is, how long has it been since you've cuddled another person? And, I'll bring up the reason I ask this question is because what happens when you don't have cuddles for months, years, or a really long time is your nervous system gets dysregulated. So when you finally do get this flood of oxytocin from cuddling, by the way, if you don't know, oxytocin is a hormone our body produces. It's produced from cuddling, bonding, childbirth. So if you're not getting a lot of oxytocin normally, then you get a bunch of it. You can get what we call an oxytocin high or a cuddle coma. And then sometimes later that day, a few days later, people will have a crash because they're just getting this thing they were deprived of, and then suddenly they kind of fall off. And I want them to be mentally prepared for that so they can prepare with some kind of self-care activity to mitigate that. That can be simple, like taking a walk, taking a bath, eating their favorite food, visiting with a friend. It could be anything, but just so they know mentally, hey, this is just a physiological reaction to finally reintegrating touch in my life. It's not a bad thing, and it's not going to keep happening if they come back for regular sessions. But I do like people to be aware, and again, this doesn't happen to everybody who hasn't cuddled in a long time, but it can happen, so we do have a duty to warn them. So the last question, I have a question and then a statement at the very end. The last real question I ask is, have you reviewed the code of conduct? And I usually keep this short and simple, and I can link my code of conduct video. If they haven't had a chance to read it, I'll usually just pull it up and read it verbatim. And I don't push too hard, but I just basically say, are you on board with that? And if they say yes, I'm like, great. And that's pretty much it. If they have issues, we can talk about it. But most people have already read my code of conduct before going in. I highly recommend you make a code of conduct if you are going to offer cuddle services, because it's a lot easier to just have it all out there in writing on your cuddle pages, on your websites, than to have to negotiate all these boundaries in the consultation itself. So if they agree to the code of conduct, one last thing I like to mention can be the elephant in the room for a lot of people. Now this is if they are male presenting. If they look like, they're a woman, then I don't bring it up. But they're male presenting, I think they assume they have a penis. Basically, I say one thing that, a lot of people get anxious about is if, they get aroused, get an erection. I just want you to know that I understand that even though you have platonic therapeutic intentions with this service, biology can still happen, and I am not going to get angry at you or shame you. All I ask is that we ignore it, that you adjust accordingly so I don't feel it. So that could mean just scooching apart a few inches, changing cuddle positions. Some people just feel more comfortable taking a break from cuddling altogether, and we'll just sit and talk for a bit and it'll go away on its own. But overall, nothing to be worried about. I don't want you going into the session having anxiety about it. So that's sort of the last thing I bring up. And then at the end, I'll say, do you have any other follow-up questions? And then at that point, once we've gotten through any follow-up questions, I will say, how do you feel about moving forward? There's basically 3 options. They can schedule now if they feel ready. They can come back, take some time to think about it. They can schedule on my website later, but that's basically how I do my consultation calls. So like and follow for more cuddle content, and I'll see you in the next video.